Hey, it is Kenny from Kenny's Audiophile Record Reviews. Thank you very much for viewing my video. As always, if you're new to my video, please like and subscribe. That would really help me out. And also check out those Amazon affiliate links in the description below. The sales of those products help my channel out going forward. I earn a commission for those sales. And if you don't purchase one of those items that are in my links below and purchase something else, I still get a commission for that. That'll help me and my channel out. Thank you very much. In this video, I'm going to talk about my 10 favorite jazz musicians of all time. Now, favorite and greatest are two different subjects. I think when you get into the conversation of greatest, you're talking about his historical significance, longevity, and their impact on the jazz world. You know, musicians like Charlie Parker and Louis Armstrong and Duke Ellington, those might go on the greatest, where favorite are musicians that are near and dear to my heart. And I give you an example outside of the world of jazz, and that is in baseball. Steve Garvey, at least at the moment, is my favorite baseball player of all time. Now, he's not the best. He's not in a class of Ted Williams, Mickey Mantle, Willie Mays, you know, Hank Aaron. He's not in that class, you know, Sandy Koufax. He's not in that class. He's just my favorite baseball player of all time because he came up with the Dodgers when I was really, in junior high school and following Dodgers really strong, even though I've been following my entire life. But, they went to the World Series in 74, and he was MVP of 74. But he's my favorite. But he's not even close to being the best. However, I think Shohei Ohtani and Mookie Betts might pass him up in a year or two, and he might be third on my list. That being said, these are my favorite jazz musicians that are near and dear to my heart, not the greatest of all time. That's another video, another topic for another time. So we're going to get in that in this video. Please leave your top 10 favorite jazz musicians in the comment section below. Not the greatest, but favorite. Now I'm going to go through these kind of quickly and give a short commentary on each one. But I'm start off, and also I may have went over by one or two. It's difficult to get it to a top 10. But I'm going to start off, and this is not in any particular order, by the way. I'll start off with Pharoah Sanders. I just love his style, especially with this Karma album. And this Karma album means a lot to me because this was introduced to me by my brothers when it came out. And I was in elementary school. And as an elementary school kid, I still love that album. And even to some of his recent issues. This is Pharoah Sanders' album simply called Pharoah. And this was a reissue of a rare record that was issued years ago. This is on, I think it's called lucabop.com has this. And it's a reissue of a rare Pharoah Sanders record. Along with this Floating Points, Pharoah Sanders and the London Symphony Orchestra. If you like a little bit of jazz, instrumental music, and classical music, this has a fabulous mix of Pharoah Sanders. You definitely need to check that out. Another one of my favorite jazz musicians is somebody who was, I think he came out maybe in the late 50s, early 60s, and I discovered him when I was in college, around 1980 or something like that. His name is Gary McFarland, and he's a vibes player, a vibraphone player. Now, Gary McFarland isn't even close to being one of the greatest vibes player of all time, like, let's say, a Lionel Hampton or somebody in that class. He's not in that class at all. He's one of my favorite. I just love the vibe and groove of his music. Some of his music, he would play the pop tunes, sing, hum, and harmonize to those tunes. He tragically passed away, unfortunately, in the early 70s, but who knows what he could have become. This is one of his albums with the great Bill Evans. But I just love his sound. It almost, like I said, includes the vibe and groove of jazz, pop, and easy listening. This might be his masterpiece, America Beautiful, an account of his disappearance. This very well could be his masterpiece right here. Gary McFarland. It is one of his later works where he was like, almost had like a pop style to him with, elements of jazz. Gary McFarland will always be one of my favorites, and I play his records a lot, and I have throughout the years. Another one of my favorites, very well could be one of the all-time greats, and that is the great piano player, Thelonious Monk. He just had this unique style that was unique to him, and when you hear Thelonious Monk play the piano, you know it's Thelonious Monk. And he had, like I said, he had his own style, his own way, his own approach to playing the piano that was different from a lot of other pianos during that era or any other time. Thelonious Monk is one of my favorite piano players of all time. This is a great book by on Thelonious Monk, oh, by the way. The Life and Times of an American Original by Robin D.G. Kelly, Thelonious Monk. I love to read when I get a chance. It just, with all the sports watching I do and the music listening I do, time with my wife, sometimes it's hard to get to those books, but I love reading. Another one, now this musician is not even close to being the greatest trumpet player of all time, in my opinion. Matter of fact, if I want to make it top 10 trumpet players of all time, he may not even make the top 10, to be quite frank with you. I mean, he's not, you know, Miles Davis or any of the greats, you know, in my opinion. But I love the vibe and groove and style of Chet Baker. Chet Baker was a very good trumpet player. He could sing, had a nice singing voice, very beautiful singing voice. You know, he had that 1950s cool vibe and groove, you know, West Coast cool vibe and groove going on with him. I think he grew up in Southern California. He did, as a matter of fact. It's Chet Baker, a later album. But he had this sense of, you know, style and cool. And it's too bad he had to go the route of drugs, man, because who knows, you know, if he lived a clean life, he could have been one of the all-time greats. I mean, in the top 5 of trumpet players. If you want to see a great documentary on Chet Baker, Let's Get Lost. You need to check that out if you have not seen Let's Get Lost. And there's another book on Chet Baker, Deep in a Dream. You might want to check this out as well. Chet Baker, one of the greatest talents in jazz that tragically did not reach his potential because of drug use. That happens to a lot of people in other sectors of life, but it's just sad to see. Another one of my all-time favorites is Stan Getz. Again, he had his own unique style of playing the trumpet. I'm playing the saxophone, I'm sorry. When Stan Getz was playing the saxophone, you just know he is him because of his, like I said, his style and his way he controlled the instrument of the saxophone. He had great control. Oh, by the way, this isn't even close to being his greatest work. In my opinion, the greatest work of Stan Getz is his Focus album. This is a masterpiece times 10. It's almost like listening to a mix of jazz and classical music, arranged by Eddie Sauter. This is my favorite Stan Getz album, and the greatest one I think ever made. Stan Getz Focus. This might have been issued in the early 60s, like 1961, 62. And there's a great book on Stan Getz, oh, by the way. The Life in Jazz, Stan Getz by Donald L. Megan. The great book, and I almost annually go back and read sections of this book. What a fabulous book that is. Another great one, and he might actually make somebody's top 10 greatest jazz musicians of all time. He just happened to be one of my favorite because of his very dramatic and very dominant and very strong and very physical drumming style. And that is a great Art Blakey. You had the great group, the Jazz Messengers, but his style of drumming was like he was what I call a physical drummer. You know, you just got into it. He's one of my favorite drummers of all time. There's no doubt about that. In the jazz realm, I think outside of jazz, it could be the group, the Cream, Ginger Baker. He was a great drummer too. Matter of fact, Ginger Baker loved jazz. But Art Blakey is one of the greatest jazz drummers of all time, if not the greatest. And like I said, I just love his physical drumming style and the way he brought physicality to the instrument. Art Blakey is one of my favorite jazz musicians of all time. This is another one of his records as well. And as of the posting of this video, I bought this album at a thrift store for $2. Art Blakey and the Afro Drum Ensemble on Blue Note Records. Another drummer, and he's one of my favorite drummers. As a matter of fact, when I listened to the Miles Davis Quintet, his second great quintet, Tony Williams is one of the musicians that always stands out to me. He was a young prodigy when he first started playing with Miles Davis. And it's just his style and the way he integrated his young visionary vision into that band, and how he is a heartbeat of that band at a young age. I think the fact that he made the Miles Davis quintet at a very young age is one of the greatest feats in jazz, and playing with those veteran musicians, Miles Davis and Wayne Shorter had been a while, because he was with the Jazz Messengers before that. So the way he just, when I just listen to those Miles Davis records, Miles Smiles, The Sorcerer, I'm listening to and for Tony Williams. He just will always be one of my favorites, even when he was with the Lifetime, Tony Williams' Lifetime. What a great drummer Tony Williams was, and too bad he had to leave us too soon as well. Also, this musician can also make one of the greatest jazz musicians of all time, but he just happens to be one of my favorite, the great John Coltrane. Now, he's one of the few jazz musicians, in my opinion, where the instrument seemed like it was part of him. It was part of his heart. It was part of his soul. It was part of his external expression, the way he expressed himself, especially on an album like A Love Supreme. Oh my God, And it's almost, he was revealing his life through his play of the saxophone, I should say. If I said trumpet earlier, please forgive me, but the way he played the saxophone was just a thing of beauty. This is a great album called Ballads. If you want to read a great book on John Coltrane, A Love Supreme, the creation of John Coltrane's classic album by the great writer Ashley Kahn. Nice book to read. Another musician in which the instrument was seemed like was part of his soul, part of his heart, part of his, like I said, external, the way he expressed himself externally. And he's probably one of the greatest improvisational musicians who ever lived, regardless of genre. And he very well could make a greatest jazz musicians of all time top 10 list, but he's on my favorite jazz musician list. Keith Jarrett on piano. His improvisational works, in my opinion, I have a lot of them on CD, a few on LP, are just simply stunningly masterpieces, like this Cone concert. I think, depending on what area of the world you live, I think it's Cologne concert, and some people might in Germany might pronounce it Cone concert. This is one of the greatest jazz albums I've ever heard in my life, in terms of enjoyment, in terms of just captivating and getting into the jazz listening experience. Cone concert does it for me. And he's one of the most bold and most daring jazz musicians of all time, because a lot of his greatest works are improvisational concert that he does on the fly. And there's a lot of musicians who are not willing to take that risk, and give Keith Jarrett credit, because he takes that risk. And he does it in great style, and he entertains the audience fabulously. Keith Jarrett, one of my favorite jazz musicians of all time on piano. Now this one, you guys probably knew was going to make the list, and that's Miles Davis. From his 50s work through his 60s work, through Kinda Blue, through Bitches Brew. He changed, Miles on the Corner. He changed with the times, or maybe the times changed with him. Maybe that's a better way of putting it, because he didn't care what people thought. Miles Davis was going to express himself musically, regardless of critics, regardless of audience. He was going to find his way and forge his own path musically. Like I say, he didn't care what anybody thought. And that's the way you should handle your life, you know, under God, as far as I'm concerned. You should forge out your own vibe and groove. If people like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. Well, you can't do anything about that. Now everybody's going to like you. I just happen to love Miles Davis. So he's one of my favorite jazz musicians of all time because his ability to, you know, just be a trendsetter throughout his musical career. Miles Davis, my favorite jazz musician of all time, one of the greatest trumpet players of all time. Another one, and I think this is the last one, someone played with Miles Davis. That's Herbie Hancock. Herbie Hancock, too. Had some really great early Blue Note records. Oftentimes go unnoticed. A great piano player with the Miles Davis Quintet. A great piano player when he was playing on albums, or keyboard player when he's playing on albums like, you know, Thrust, Sextant, Headhunters, one of the greatest jazz fusion records of all time. Whether it's improvisational, not necessarily improvisational, but acoustic piano works with Chick Corea, or even through his Sunlight album, which he sang through a vocoder. And he went on to win, you know, multiple Grammys. He had this great career where he too changed with the times and was an innovator. Like I said, with the Sunlight album, when he won a Grammy for a Rocket, gosh, maybe that Joni Letters record, which he won a Grammy for too. So he has longevity on his side, he has talent on his side, he has experience on his side. What a magnificent jazz musician. And also often find myself playing his records throughout the years, whether it's his electronic records with his, you know, Headhunters albums, or acoustic records, early mid-60s. I'm always playing Herbie Hancock albums. Oh, by the way, this is a great book on Miles Davis. I forgot to show it. This is probably the best book I've ever read in my life. Miles Davis's autobiography. The best book I ever read in my life, perhaps. And I read this a lot, yearly, every year. Herbie Hancock. This really is a very revealing book on Herbie Hancock called Possibilities. He goes in very good amount of detail. A very enjoyable read. But those are my top 10 favorite jazz musicians of all time. Not greatest, but favorite. The greatest jazz musician of all time, regardless of jazz genre, whether it's jazz, fusion, jazz. That will have to come later, because the greatest jazz musicians of all time, that would require a lot of thought, you know, because you're talking like musicians, historical significance, longevity, you know, so many other factors will go in that video. Whereas favorite jazz musicians of all time, well, those are things that are near and dear to my heart. Nobody else's. So please leave your comments in the comment section below about your top 10 favorite jazz musicians of all time. Not greatest, but favorite. There's a difference. It was cool doing this video for you. It was pretty nice. And like I said, check out those affiliate links in the description section of my video. Like I said, if you go there, and don't even click on one of the links, and don't even purchase one of those items in the description below, and purchase something else, I still get a commission for that. That'll help my channel go out going forward. Please like and subscribe. Thank you for viewing my video. God bless. Strong love. And always keep the peace worldwide.